That's in Acts, the podcast where we dive into the wild, world-changing stories of the early church and ask all the questions you didn't know you had.
Hi, I'm Sharon Hobbs. I'm a teacher, a lover of all things scriptural, and I am so excited to have a conversation about Acts every week.
And I'm Melissa Phipps, here to ask all the dumb questions, the curious questions, and maybe the ones you were too afraid to ask in Sunday school.
Together, we'll explore the book of Acts, not as a dusty piece of history, but as a living, breathing story of God's power, his people, and his purposes.
So expect lively conversation, honest curiosity, and a few, wait, that's really in there moments.
This is, wait, that's in Acts, where discovery meets faith and theology meets real life. Welcome back to Wait, That's in Acts. And today I want to welcome Tara Swinford. She's going to take Mel's place for 2 or 3 times while Mel is diligently working in the watermelon patch. So thanks, Tara, for stepping in and being the question girl. And I'm going to give it over to you.
Okay.
We're going to start in Acts chapter 9.
And it's action-packed. It is very
A
action-packed.
big movement in the story of Acts.
Yes, I'm so glad to be here. I am enjoying these podcasts, and I've really loved watching you and Mel go back and forth. So to be a part of it is definitely an honor. So I'm excited to learn even more from you.
All right.
Even on camera.
Okay.
So get ready for my shocked face. She's going to teach me something. All right, so we are in chapter 9, and we saw Saul a couple chapters ago. He's just in rage with Stephen, and Stephen got martyred, and you see Saul just not happy.
Yes.
Not happy with the movement of Jesus.
And killing Stephen wasn't enough. That was just opened the door.
That was just the appetizer, one would say, I guess.
That's right.
Like just started going. So now we're going to get to see what the result is
right.
the reaction after. Revisit it.
If you remember, when we were talking about it, I mentioned the fact that this event, while he was participating and approving of it, was going to trouble him. And we see the result of that trouble in his life. And it's interesting because doesn't God do that to us?
Oh, yes.
He makes us uncomfortable. We might do something that we just can't shake, and it just keeps troubling us until we resolve it.
It definitely does. All right, well, let's start in chapter 9. So I'm going to read the first few verses, and then I'm sure you got things to say.
I always do.
All right, so chapter 9, verse 1. But Paul, still breathing threats and murder against the disciples of the Lord, went to the high priest and asked him for letters to the synagogues at Damascus, so that if he found any belonging to the way, men or women, he might bring them bound to Jerusalem. Now, as he went on his way, he approached Damascus, and suddenly a light from heaven shone around him. And falling to the ground, he heard a voice saying to him, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? And he said, Who are you, Lord? And he said, I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. But rise and enter the city, and you will be told what you are to do. The men who were traveling with him stood speechless, hearing the voice but not seeing no one. Saul rose from the ground, and although his eyes were opened, he saw nothing. So they led him by the hand and brought him into Damascus. And for 3 days he was without sight and neither ate nor drank. Wow.
Wow.
What an encounter.
That's right.
Yes.
So I think first I'm going to show you a map. Okay. And if you see this map, you will see I have marked Jerusalem down here. Okay. Because that's where Saul was. And then I have marked Damascus up here. All right. So sometimes when we read the Bible, we don't really think about distances or time. You know, if I was getting in a car and driving from Jerusalem to Damascus, I could do that in probably about 5 hours. You know, it's about 200 miles. Okay.
Wow.
Quite a ways.
Yes.
And they walked. I also think it's interesting. There's an old master's painting that's about encounter, right? And it shows him knocked off of a donkey. Honestly, he probably was not riding a donkey.
Right.
He was with a group of men. They didn't all have donkeys. You had to have some money to be a regular donkey rider. And so they walked. It probably took them almost 7 days, 6 to 7 days to get from Jerusalem to Damascus. So think about how diligently that he was going to go so far into Gentile territory, not even Jewish territory,
Yes.
to persecute these children of the way, these Christians that were believers in Jesus. Okay.
Yeah. That
So-
rage really fueled him make that
It
journey.
absolutely
Yes.
did. I think we've mentioned it before. He was a student of Gamaliel. Gamaliel was probably the most respected rabbi teacher in Jerusalem. And he was a member of the Sanhedrin. Saul was probably kind of a junior member of the Sanhedrin at this time. And he petitioned this court to get authority or letters that he could go into Damascus and he could take into custody anyone that he found in the way. Right. So he's traveling all this distance with these men on a rage, and then he encounters an voice, right?
Yes.
Now, it doesn't tell us that he saw Jesus in this account. In a couple of other locations that we're going to read in a little bit, he gives some more details, and we do see that he saw, but none of the men saw. They all saw the light.
Yes.
They all heard the voice. Some heard the voice as thunders, not being able to understand what was said. But Saul clearly heard what was said to him and saw the Lord himself.
Yeah.
And we see that that's kind of important because Paul, later in his descriptions, he justifies or confirms his position as an apostle because he said, I saw the Lord. And that was one of the requirements for the first apostles, to be ones that had walked with, seen, and heard the Lord. And so Saul receives that approval by seeing and hearing the Lord. And then we see that the Lord himself gave him instructions in the theology that he preaches, the gospel that he later preaches.
Yes.
Okay, so he is beginning with Stephen, and then this rage just grows and grows, and he is breathing out threats and murder, right? So we see this progressive action. He gets his authority or permission, and he heads to Damascus, right? And he's going to come sweep into Damascus, all of the synagogues. So everybody is at risk. And the people know it. When we hear Ananias's part of the story, he says, I've heard about this guy.
Oh, yeah. He had quite the reputation.
That's right. Okay, so the way is probably the earliest designation of the believers. We know that from the scriptures it says they were first called Christians in Antioch. Okay,
Yes.
That's actually later when Paul becomes a member and part of Antioch. Okay, right. But in the beginning, this group of people were known as the Way. they did not think of themselves as separate. They were another sect of the Jews, just like the Sadducees were a sect and the Pharisees were the sect. So the way, those that followed Jesus Christ considered themselves Jews, right?
Yep.
And they were a sect of the Jews. And for a long time with the Romans, they were covered under the authorities that the Jews had, right? When they became separated and rejected entirely by all of the Jewish religion, then they no longer had the protections that the Jews had. Okay.
Yes.
But here still, they are a sect or a part of the Jewish religion. Okay. So it's interesting that it says he comes and he has authority to take into custody both the men and the women.
Exactly. That stuck out to me too. Normally women aren't included in these kind of things.
That's right. That's right. And so this is, Rage 2.0, I guess you would say, because they are so afraid of this movement that they want to wipe out the women, anybody who can continue to perpetuate this gospel message. Okay.
Right.
And yet, isn't it interesting that God, the word says, he uses that which the devil meant for evil for good.
That's right.
Those that have the strongest testimony are those that have been either fully in the depths of the sin that they have a testimony against, or that have been so adamantly opposed to an idea or a thought,
Yes.
and vocal about it, and yet we see them turned around. I think even in our modern day, you look at people like Russell Brand.
Oh, yes.
What a testimony that guy has.
Yes.
If you listen to him, it's like so genuine, so amazing, because he has lived that philosophy that was contrary to Jesus Christ until Jesus Christ met him like he met Saul here on the road to Damascus.
Absolutely.
Okay, so there's this flashing light from heaven. Makes me think about going back to the light that we saw on the Mount of Transfiguration.
Yes.
There it describes it like lightning. It's just a total display of authority and power. And if you look in Revelations 4, verse 5, we see that same flashing lightning in the throne room of God.
Yes.
Okay. So it happens at noon, brightest time of the day, midday, right when the sun is absolutely the brightest, to show the comparison with this power, light, glory from God that is so shocking that it pales the brightest natural light that you could have. In verse 4, it tells us that he fell.
Yes.
Okay. So, like I said, not riding a donkey. He didn't get knocked off of a donkey. But we see this is such a common response to the authority and power of God. Even in the throne room, all of the elders fall down before God and they cast their crowns, right?
Yes.
So this display of power, it wasn't just chooses to kneel. No, it was
no other response but to kneel.
Yes,
Yes.
Right. And I think I probably told this story on this podcast before, but when I received the Holy Spirit, I was on my knees and I was praying, and I was literally knocked back and pinned to the floor by that power of God. So that power of God still displays himself in that same way, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Saul, heard this voice. He understood it. And he says,
Who are you, Lord?
What?
It's in verse 5.
Okay, so in verse 4, we hear God say to him, Jesus say to him, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Right? And he thinks, how could that be? I think this must be God. And certainly everything I'm doing is for you, God.
Yes.
I am not persecuting you. I am protecting your name.
Yes.
That's really what Saul was thinking he was doing. And then the response is, who are you, Lord? He recognizes, because he says, Lord, okay? He recognizes this is God. So who could you be that I am persecuting you? And he said, I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. You're not persecuting people who believe in me. You are persecuting me. Now, he could say that because these followers were carriers of the Spirit of Jesus Christ in them. That was a whole new concept to him.
Yeah.
That I could persecute God by persecuting these people in the flesh, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's interesting, and different translations do it differently. Some translations leave out the next phrase, and that is because it's not found in all of the earliest manuscripts. So it might be a gloss, it might be added in, it might be something that they picked up out of Saul's other writings or speaking. But I think it's important that it is in there because it tells you something. I'm going to read it out of the Amplified. It says, it is dangerous and it will turn out badly for you to keep kicking against the goad. Now, a goad was a pointed stick that they used to drive the goats, okay? Sheep follow, goats you drive, okay? And Saul was being a goat here for sure. So he says, you keep kicking against the goad to offer vain and perilous resistance.
Wow.
So that really shows us how God was he was using the goad, trying to get Saul's attention. If you're trying to drive a goat and a little poke doesn't get them going, you're going to poke them a little harder and a little harder until you're shoving them.
Yeah.
Well, here's the shove.
Here's the shove.
Right.
Exactly right.
Okay. So verse 6, he says, trembling and astonished, I guess
As you
so.
would be. Yes.
He asked, Lord, what do you desire me to do? I have great respect for Saul here.
Yes.
In that when he came to that realization, there was no more arguing. There was, what do I do?
Immediate obedience.
That's right. I don't know what to do. I'm totally lost, but I'll do anything you tell me to do, right?
Yes.
And the Lord said to him, arise and go into the city, and you will be told what to do.
So he didn't even have all the answers and was still obedient.
That's right. And
Yeah.
I think that's a really valuable point to bring up, is that God seldom gives you the plan. He gives you the next step. And he doesn't explain, he doesn't explain to Saul, oh, you're going to be blind, but I'm going to take care of it. Just all of a sudden, you are blind and all you know is, okay, you're supposed to go into Damascus. Obviously, you're not going to carry out the plan that you originally had, right?
Yeah.
And he doesn't have to just answer to himself. He's got all of these guys that he's traveling with that
We're on the same mission. They were
right.
a part of his group.
That's right. And so now he's going to have to say, hey, this event was made by Jesus, the one that we've been trying to fight against. This was a Jesus thing. I don't know what's next, but I'm just going to wait and find out.
I mean, how much we have learned from Saul just in 9 verses. Like, he went from knowing there was a God, knowing the Old Testament scripts because he'd been raised hearing it and trained in it, to having an encounter with God, to immediate obedience and just doing what he's told to do without knowing all the details or the answers or knowing the trials that are getting ready to hit him real quick.
That's right.
I mean, you need to just take that put that note on your mirror and look at that every day.
That's right. The answer is always yes, Lord.
Yes.
Okay, Lord. Yes, Lord. And patience to wait. Seek God, seek God and wait until the next instruction comes.
I mean, if a new converted Christian can do it within the first minute,
right?
What's our problem?
That's
Why are we not on board with that?
Yeah.
Or struggle or hesitate to do all the things?
I think this blinding of Saul was very important because it was a natural thing that caused him to realize how blind he had been. We think we see, we think we know. And when we realize, oh, I don't know anything, I don't see anything, I am just here waiting for God's next step, that's when our heart is ready to be able to move on. Okay?
Absolutely.
So let's see, where are we then? They were unable to speak for terror, hearing the voice but seeing no one. So they got enough of a shock that they were knocked off of their purpose as well. And so then they take him into the city, and 3 days, significant. 3 days are always significant in the word. He can't see in the natural, but we see that he does see in the spirit. And we don't know that Saul ever had any other vision experience with God until this first vision that he sees what the next answer from God is.
Yes.
Oh, and he's, of course, fasting.
Yeah,
because
3 days.
If you need an answer from God, you better be fasting.
You better be, and you'll get it. Were you wanting
right.
to read the other accounts or give the references?
So later in his writings, Paul gives different accounts, or different times he gives the account of this event. I think that's kind of interesting because don't we tell our conversion story, our testimony? That's significant when you're talking to different people. So we're going to split this up.
Okay.
And I will read the first one that's given in Acts 22. Okay, so Acts 22:4. And this is written to the Jews. So you get a different picture than you get when you're looking at what he tells the Romans or what he tells the Galatians, who are Gentiles, right? So we got 3 different pictures here. So to the Jews, he writes, I persecuted this way to the death, binding and putting both men and women into prison, as also the high priest and all the council of the elders can testify. See, he thought that he could go back and convince the Jews because he'd been on their side of this table, right? From them, I also received letters to the brethren and started off for Damascus in order to bring those who were there to Jerusalem as prisoners to be punished. But it happened that as I was on my way approaching Damascus about noontime, a very bright light suddenly flashed from heaven all around me, and I fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to me, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? And I answered, Who are you, Lord? And he said to me, I am Jesus the Nazarene, whom you are persecuting. And those that were with me saw the light, to be sure, but did not understand the voice of the one who was speaking to me. And I said, What shall I do, Lord? And the Lord said to me, Get up, go on into Damascus, and there you will be told all that has been appointed for you to do. But since I came, I could not, because of the brightness of the light, see. I was led by the hand by those who were with me and came into Damascus. And then a certain Ananias, a man who was devout by the standards of the law, see, he's talking to the Jews here,
Yeah.
and well spoken of by all of the Jews who lived there, came to me and standing near to me said, Brother Saul, receive your sight. And at that very time I looked up and saw him. And he said, The God of our fathers has appointed you to know his will and to see the righteous one and to hear an utterance from his mouth. And so there's the confirmation that he could be an apostle. For you will be a witness for him to all men of what you have seen and heard. Now, why do you delay? Get up and be baptized, wash away your sins, calling on his name. That was the instruction to Paul that was told to the Jews so that the Jews would understand it was their God that had instructed him.
Followed all the rules.
That's right.
All right. So I have the next one. It's in Acts 26, 9 through 19. Mm-hmm. And who's he speaking to here? I haven't looked.
He is speaking to Agrippa and Festus when he is being on trial before he is sent to Rome.
Okay. So I myself was convinced that I ought to do many things in opposing the name of Jesus of Nazareth. And I did so in Jerusalem. I not only locked up many of the saints in prison after receiving authority from the chief priests, but when they were put to death, I cast my vote against them.
So there we see he's Sanhedrin.
I punished them often in all the synagogues and tried to make them blaspheme.
Yeah.
And in raging fury, there's that rage again, raging fury against them, I persecuted them even to foreign cities.
Like Damascus.
Like Damascus. In this connection, I journeyed to Damascus with the authority and commission of the chief priests. At midday, which we've talked about that, at midday, O king, I saw on the way a light from heaven, brighter than the sun, that shone around me and those who journeyed with me. And when we had all fallen to the ground, I heard a voice saying to me in the Hebrew language, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Is it hard for you to kick against the goads? And I said, Who are you, Lord? And the Lord said, I am Jesus whom you are persecuting. But rise and stand upon your feet, for I have appeared to you for this purpose, to appoint you as a servant and witness to the things in which you have seen me and to those in which I will appear to you, delivering you from your people and from the Gentiles to whom I am sending you, to open their eyes so that they may turn from darkness to light and from the power of Satan to God, that they may receive forgiveness of sins and a place among those who are sanctified by faith in me. Therefore, O King Agrippa, I was not disobedient to the heavenly vision, but declared first to those in Damascus, then in Jerusalem, and throughout all the region of Judea, and also to the Gentiles, that they should repent and turn to God, performing deeds in keeping with their repentance.
I think that, I think that in that account, it's very interesting when he says, open their eyes, because that's still another connection, another reference to the fact that he thought he saw, in the natural, he saw and thought he was right. Then he was blinded, recognized he was wrong, and then his eyes were opened and his purpose became clear through the prophetic word of Ananias. That's kind of a process that we all come through in our conversion as well.
Yes.
And then I'll read the very last account that we're going to give, and that's in Galatians 1, starting with verse 13. This is one written, obviously, to the Gentiles, right? It's written specifically so that he is telling these Gentiles that he did not go and get trained by the apostles for his gospel message. He got his gospel message directly from Jesus Christ as an apostle called to the Gentiles, just like the apostles who were called to the Jews got their message directly from Jesus Christ. So it starts in verse 13. For you have heard of my former manner of life in Judaism, how I used to persecute the church of God beyond measure and tried to destroy it. And I was advancing in Judaism beyond many of my contemporaries among my countrymen, being more extremely zealous for my ancestral traditions. But when God, who had set me apart even from my mother's womb and called me through his grace, was pleased to reveal his Son in me so that I might preach him among the Gentiles, I did not immediately consult with flesh and blood, nor did I go to Jerusalem to those who were apostles before me, but I went away to Arabia and returned once more to Damascus. So we see, and there's a little confusion when you read all the accounts, because sometimes the way the word is written, they condense things, and so you don't get the real timeline. But this is Paul telling you exactly his timeline. So he went 3 years into Arabia and studied, received the visitations from God, prepared himself, even though he started out very zealously, immediately preaching Jesus Christ. Then he encountered persecution, just like he had provided, right? And then he went away seeking God, getting the fullness before he then tried to connect with the apostles in Jerusalem, okay? So he went away to Arabia and returned once more to Damascus. Then 3 years later, I went up to Jerusalem to become acquainted with Cephas, Peter, and stayed with him 15 days. Okay, so that's the account that he gives to the Gentiles.
I love how each story given not only gives a different perspective, but just gives teeny tiny details. Like there's just a little extra here and a little extra there. So you really get the full picture of this encounter on the road to Damascus.
Pretty incredible.
It is. Well, I think that is a great place to stop this episode, and we will pick back up and see what happens once he is without sight for 3 days and fasting.
Well, we're going to leave him blind for a week now.
Oh, yeah. We got to leave him blind for a week instead of 3 days. It was
Thanks,
so good.
Tara.
Yes.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Well, that wraps up today's episode of Wait, That's in Acts.
And together, we uncover just how wild, surprising, and inspiring the book of Acts really is.
If you learned something new, laughed a little, or had one of those, wait, that's in there moments, share this episode with a friend.
And you can find more conversation, notes, and upcoming topics wherever you get your podcasts.
Until next time.
Keep asking questions, keep discovering the God